I'm Anna Garcia, right now on True Crime News. He spent 32 years behind bars before he was finally released.
I also want to feel that first hug from my son.
He says he was wrongly convicted. Even one of the first cops on the scene agrees.
He's telling the truth.
So why was Crosley Green sent back to prison just 2 years later?
Not a murder. Never was a murder.
From death row to family man to inmate again, his second fight for freedom and to clear his name. Then a mystery in Michigan, a small town haunted by the disappearance of 3 adorable brothers.
I know, in my heart, I will see them again.
Their father under suspicion.
Something's not right here.
And a new twist in the case to make him answer. Your daily source for true crime starts right now. Thanks for joining us. We begin with a Florida man fighting to be released from prison for the second time after getting a brief taste of freedom. Crosley Green was convicted of murder and initially sentenced to death. After 32 years behind bars, Green's conviction was overturned and he was joyfully reunited with his family. But that joy would be short-lived.
I want to thank God. I want to thank God that I'm standing here today as a free man.
Emotional and savoring freedom. A tearful Crosley Green reuniting with his family after spending 32 years in a Florida prison for murder. Green maintained all along he was innocent. A closer look at the evidence had cast doubt on his conviction after he spent half his life behind bars.
Mr. Green was convicted for a crime he never committed. Spent 19 years on death row, 32 years in prison.
What has happened to me could happen to you, and you.
It happened back in 1989 when Green was accused of killing a man named Charles Chip Flynn. Flynn was with his ex-girlfriend Kim Halleck in an orange grove at the time. The two had gotten back together for the night and were kissing when suddenly a gunshot. At the time, Patrol Sergeant Diane Clark was one of the first officers on the scene.
We found a male with his hands tied behind him, lying on the ground, face down, just moaning. At this point, he's alive. We were able to roll him over, ask him his name. He wouldn't. The only thing he kept saying to us was, "Take me home. I'm hurt. Take me home." We asked him what happened while we were waiting for the ambulance. What happened, and he'd give us no information. He just kept saying, "Take me home, I want to go home."
The ex-girlfriend Kim told police she and Chip were kidnapped. She claimed the gunman shot Chip in the chest, but she managed to escape. Police noted in their incident reports, Kim took her time to get help.
She passed several houses. She passed a convenience store that's open 24 hours a day. She passed a payphone. She passed the hospital and went to a friend of Chip's. And that's when she called 911. Had she done that quickly and help gotten there quickly, and he'd been at the hospital in a timely fashion, he'd probably be alive today.
Sadly, Chip died. He was just 22, and Kim told investigators a black man was the killer.
The witness said it was a guy who was big and bulky. Crosley Green at the time was skinny. This guy had curly hair, like greasy hair, she described, which, if you know back in the 80s, Jerry curl. Well, Crosley has always kept his hair cut really close, so the opposite.
But Crosley was already known to police in the tiny town of Titusville, Florida, because of past drug offenses. And when Kim Halleck was shown a lineup of 6 black men, Kim picked out Crosley Green, even though Green's photo was smaller and darker than the other 5 pictures, raising questions about the police department's conduct.
The investigator that they brought in to take over this case is the one that put together the photo lineup. And I've done photo lineups myself, and I've never seen one so obvious as that one was.
Some officers who responded to the shooting that day all along had doubts about Kim's account.
I felt like something's wrong here.
Yet Green was arrested and charged with kidnapping, robbery, and murder. At trial, his own sister testified against him.
His sister who was also under federal indictment, was told that if she didn't cooperate, that she would lose her children. She testified that Crosley Green, her brother, had confessed to him. What he allegedly confessed to, facts were very different from even the facts that the one eyewitness testified to.
But an all-white jury found Green guilty, and he was sentenced to death. In a jailhouse interview with our affiliate, WOFL, Green admitted he was no saint, but insisted he'd never take another life.
I'm not a murderer. Never was a murderer.
There's a mountain of evidence pointing to his innocence, but it's difficult in our criminal justice system, absent DNA, to prove actual innocence.
It would take decades before Crosley Green had a sign of hope.
This is a case that kind of calls out for justice.
When a new team of lawyers took on his case pro bono, they say jurors never heard the real story because prosecutors withheld a key piece of evidence. Evidence showed responding officers suspected Kim all along. Clark kept the notes all this time. She reads them aloud.
Mark and I suspect that the girl did it because she changed her story so many times. Apparently she did tie his hands behind his back.
What you have is two police officers with experience concluding that Mr. Green was innocent.
Prosecutors never turned those police notes over to the defense. Green's new legal team says the notes would have been a game changer.
The prosecutor had a constitutional duty to turn over those notes because it pointed to Mr. Green's innocence. Had his lawyers had those notes, the impact of that would have just been seismic.
True Crime News contacted Kim Halleck, but she did not respond to our request for comment. But after the shocking revelation from police, a federal judge overturned Green's conviction 6 years ago, saying prosecutors violated his right to a fair trial.
The black guy did it was a hoax.
The state of Florida appealed, keeping Green behind bars for several more years. Then the COVID-19 pandemic hit. As the coronavirus worked its way through the prison, the aging Green was allowed to leave prison and placed on house arrest. At 65 years old, Green walked out, reconnected with his family, and eased his way back into society.
Since I've been home, I got to know my sisters better. My niece, nephews and son. It's been wonderful, and I don't want that taken from me now.
He took a job making metal parts and said he never missed a day of work. But everything would change yet again. Crosley Green would soon be back behind prison walls. When we come back, why Crosley Green was locked up again.
He was given the opportunity to plead guilty and get out early. And he said, I am not pleading to something I did not do.
That's next. We're back with Crosley Green's fight for freedom for the second time. After spending more than 3 decades in prison, Crosley was reconnected with his family, but his life would take a dramatic turn when he was locked up once again.
We all appreciate the support that you have shown and the love that you have shown.
Crosley Green and his family show gratitude to their Florida community. After 32 years in prison for a murder he says he did not commit, his new legal team successfully argued there were irregularities in Green's trial.
Prosecutors have a duty to play by the rules, and that did not happen here. The district court said it didn't happen and that the evidence that was suppressed went to the heart of the defense's theory that someone else committed this crime.
A federal judge overturned Green's conviction. He was given a conditional release and house arrest during the appeals process. Diane Clark, one of the cops who worked the original murder case, has since moved out of Florida, but she returned to show support for Crosley at a community gathering.
I had a good conversation with Crosley when he was out on appeal. Got a job, he got his driver's license, he had the ankle bracelet on. He could go to church, go to the grocery store, and go to work.
But his life would take another dramatic turn. 2 years after his taste of freedom, a 3-judge panel sided with the state's appeal and reversed the ruling that overturned Green's conviction, sending Green back behind bars. With family members and his 2 lawyers by his side, Green turned himself back in. Even the cop who responded to the scene of that 1989 shooting that claimed Chip Flynn's life was shocked. She says the scant evidence did not add up.
This is a picture of the truck Chip and Kim were in that night. The significance here is a couple of things. One, there's no fingerprints of Crosley Green's in this truck. Allegedly, according to her, Crosley drove this truck with them in it, even though he didn't know how to drive a standard stick shift.
Clark says Crosley should have never have been convicted.
This is a man that was on death row for several years. Pro bono attorneys out of D.C. managed to get him off death row. He was given the opportunity to plead guilty and get out early, and he said, "I did not kill that boy. I am not pleading to something I did not do." He's telling the truth.
At the time, she tried to tell her bosses.
I was never subpoenaed to testify in court, yet I was one of the first people on the scene. I was kind of shoved aside because I don't really think they wanted to hear what I had to say.
Now, his lawyers continue to fight for Green.
We believe he should be immediately eligible for parole, and we're appealing to the governor to grant him clemency.
Caged once again, Green continues to hold on to his faith.
I just got to keep moving forward. With everything that done happened already, I'm free. On the inside, I'm free.
We'll continue to follow Crosley's case and bring you updates. When we come back, the mysterious disappearance of 3 brothers, their heartbroken mom's desperate search, and the boy's dad is the main suspect.
Each time I talked with him or texted with him, there was another twist. Something just wasn't setting right.
That's next. We turn now to news developing about the mysterious disappearance of 3 young brothers in Michigan. Like many divorced families, the little boys went to spend some time with their dad, but in this case, they were never seen again.
They will hibernate until they graduate. That's what grieving mother Tanya Zuvers says her ex, John Skelton, told her when she asked to see her sons, ages 9, 7, and 5. Today, the missing Skelton boys, Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner, would be in their late teens and 20s, and their mom, Tanya, has gone from saying this.
I know. In my heart, I will see them again.
To petitioning a court to formally declare them deceased, putting an end to a child abduction case that has haunted this small Michigan community over 14 years. It began Thanksgiving Day when Tanya was supposed to pick up the boys after they spent the holiday with their father.
We had plans to meet, and I would get the boys back at 3 o'clock. And about mid-morning, I thought, you know, if he's home, not doing anything, I'll see if I can get the boys early.
But their conversation quickly became unsettling.
He started with the stories. Well, we went away. We're in Jackson. I'll see if we can make it home. His van was in the driveway. I said, your van's in the driveway, huh? Well, they came and picked us up because we didn't know where we were going. And at this point, I had no reason not to believe him. But each time I talked with him or texted with him, there was another twist. Something just wasn't setting right, and I'm going, ah. And then he finally said to me, well, I haven't been quite honest with you. I'm actually at home, and the boys are with my friend.
That friend? Joanne Taylor, someone John said he had just recently met online.
So I asked him, well, when your friend brings the boys home, are they bringing them to your house or my house? Well, I'm not sure. I said, well, how can I get a hold of her? Because if she's coming from Jackson, I can meet her somewhere.
And that's when John told Tanya he was calling from a hospital after trying to take his own life. Tanya immediately called the police, who headed to John's place.
When they went into the house, there was broken dishes, things just thrown about, furniture broken, mattresses cut with a knife, dressers busted. I mean, there was just destruction everywhere.
But no sign of the three boys. Then Skelton told police that he and his internet friend hid the children with a group called United Foster Outreach and Underground Sanctuaries in order to protect them from Tanya's abuse. But cell phone records told a different story. At 4:30 a.m. on the night the boys disappeared, John's phone was tracked driving 30 miles into nearby Ohio. For 2 hours, it was turned off before reappearing in Michigan 2 hours later. When cops did an exhaustive search for a Joanne Taylor, they didn't find any woman going by this name. Same for the mysterious underground charity John mentioned. And that was before John indicated to authorities that he had a vision of the boys being put in a dumpster in an area of Ohio. Tanya was always convinced that John killed them. And why?
He had gone through a previous divorce, and there was a custody battle, and his ex-wife gained custody, and he had visitation rights. She lived in another state, and so he rarely saw his daughter. And I think that was the biggest thing that he was afraid of, that he was going to lose his sons.
Absent bodies and no crime scene, Skelton was not charged with murder.
In law enforcement, we get a lot of cues. We're trained to be observant. We're trained to read body language. We're trained to do a lot of things to the point where, you know, the hairs on your neck will stand up and you get this gut feeling of something's not right here. With him, it's like that from the second I walk in that door to the moment I leave.
He was eventually arrested and charged with 3 counts of parental kidnapping and 3 counts of unlawful imprisonment. He pleads no contest and has been behind bars ever since, denied parole at every turn. But next year, Skelton's sentence ends. Now declaring the boys deceased would give Tanya and her daughter Courtney legal ammunition to pursue civil claims against him, or at the very least, get closure for themselves.
I have to keep going. Quitting's not an option. I have 3 sons who want their mom to be happy. They want their mom to be who she was when they were still here.
The new development in this case, we won't know until mid-December whether a judge will grant Tanya's request to declare the boys dead. We will keep you updated at truecrimenews.com. As for the boys' father, a parole board has turned down John Skelton's application for parole. He'll remain in prison for another year until November 29th of 2025, nearly 15 years to the day after the boys went missing. We'll be right back.
On the next True Crime News, the beautiful young model murdered.
It seems as if the suspect committed the crime and then made sure to be gone as quickly as possible.
I couldn't believe that my sister was dead.
Did she know her killer?
When my partner and I arrived, she was nude.
Or was this something more sinister?
I'm still scared that I could be next.
The clues found in her final photos and what the camera at a high-rise building uncovered.
He walked out not even with a spot of blood on him.
On the next True Crime News.
For the latest breaking crime news, go to truecrimenews.com. Watch more exclusive content on our YouTube channel, listen to our podcast, and follow us at My True Crime News. That's it for today's True Crime News. I'm Anna Garcia. See you next time, everyone. Crime doesn't stop, neither do we.